on this episode of the Masters in Motion podcast, we wanted to kick it off with an interview with Forrest Smith. He is the founder of the Kineon Move Plus. This is something I've been using for about 6 weeks now, and it is Forrest, I'll have you tell us exactly what this is, but it's essentially red laser light, which you'll explain much more deeply than I will on this. But it's something that you can apply, on your joints, right? My knees, I've been working on my elbow a little bit, even my lower back, my hips. And I didn't want to believe when I first tried this out that this, I'm going to just say, like, I was totally skeptical. This red light therapy was like, okay, what could this, I mean, maybe it's just a big placebo effect, right? And I've dug in a little bit further, and I know that it's not. There's more to it than quote unquote red light therapy, subjectively for me, I guess, I noticed improvement in the areas that I was applying it, and I was almost annoyed at the fact that it worked. Right? I was like, okay, fine, it works. And then we found out that we could get you on the podcast for an interview to really just kind of explain what these are. Our audience is, masters athletes, those of us athletes, and you're a CrossFitter as well, that have some gray hair, at least some of us do. And we're always looking for ways to improve our overall recovery. We love this. We love CrossFit. We love being part of the CrossFit community. A lot of us love the sport of CrossFit, and we also love longevity, and we've got to mesh all that together. So with all that said, we'd love to get to know you. And before we started the show, we got a little bit of, got to know you about your background and stuff, but tell us about you and maybe, what led to the Kineon Move Plus.
Absolutely. I'll kind of take a step back because it's a little bit of a long story, but just to say that the product came post mission. We sat down with my partner Tom, and our first 2 months or 3 months of working together was really kind of built around defining the mission. So our mission as a team is to increase the quality of life for the largest number of people we can in the most measurable way we can. And we've picked a very, and I think you've alluded to this a little bit yourself, we picked a very frustrating kind of treatment modality for this, which is pain, neuromuscular pain and inflammation. Because as kind of technologists and as scientists in our kind of physiology team, medical team, we really like to have objective, measurable metrics, but in pain, it doesn't exist. There's a signal there, but it's so much impacted by kind of environment and stress levels and so much else that you can't measure directly. That it's been a very frustrating product to kind of measure for the first product that we've released. But the good thing is we are seeing with these subjective measurements, the primary measurement for this with kind of the medical community is called the visual assessment score. And it's kind of a 0 to 10 scale of, where are you at from a pain scale today? And we see really powerfully meaningful impacts on that. And that's how we measure ourselves, is back to this mission. So all that to say, my business partner and I have been working together for about 4 years building this company, and we've never met before. And so
wow.
All of this came together around this mission, and has really kind of expanded out to kind of a 40 plus person team. We've shipped 35,000 devices around the world to different people, and we're really able to measure how this is impacting people's lives from a pain standpoint, because pain does really impact a number of different things, and particularly chronic pain from a mental health aspect as well. So all that to say, the background for this really came from the mission. How do we take a device? How do we create a device that actually moves the needle for people with their quality of life? And one of the things that we've seen with our devices is, particularly with our older users, these older cohorts, is inflammation is something that we treat extremely effectively, and that there aren't really good gold standards out there for treating. So when you're treating something with non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, as an example, this is not reducing the inflammation in the way that you would like to reduce the inflammation, which is focused on the chronic inflammation and kind of the acute inflammation. Oftentimes in your body is doing really positive things to bring about changes that are going to help you from a healing and recovery standpoint. And we actually leave those alone, and we actually target specifically a number of cytokines and growth factors that that help with the healing and recovery, but essentially reducing the chronic version of this. So that's been our kind of journey into creating a product. One of our assumptions with this product was that if we can make something that, what existed when we started building this product was $20,000 devices that worked, and then $300 devices that were crap, and there's still a lot of those out there. And our goal was to get a sub $500 product that we can help people steer away from pharmaceuticals and treat themselves in a more effective way. Give them an option with low friction to build habits that are going to help them heal their joints and remodel soft tissue in a more effective way. So hopefully that answers the question reasonably.
It does.
Absolutely.
So with that, it is tell me the difference, or tell us the difference between red light therapy that doesn't work and what you've created, because we've got LED and laser built into this. And so what's the difference versus this and a product I might find on Amazon that could be, I don't know, a few $100s cheaper that says red light therapy?
100%. I think the main thing is that laser therapy and light therapy is delivery and dosing of photons into photoacceptors. And at this point, there's our team actually contribute to a worldwide international group of consolidating the medical research around this and quantifying these different dosaging schemes or set levels where you're targeting these photoacceptors in a more effective way for triggering the adaptations that you're trying to trigger. And so what we've done with this, we found when we came into this space was that most companies weren't doing any kind of dosing model at all. And the more sophisticated ones were doing engineering-based dosing. And what I mean by that is with metrics like irradiance and power density, you know how much light is coming out of a device and then how much is hitting the skin. But that's not really telling you what you want to know relative to the photoacceptors that you're trying to trigger. And so what we've done and spent a lot of time and tens of thousands of hours at this point is created increasingly. So first we started with what was the best thing that existed for this, which is a De Beers law framework, a modified De Beers law framework, which is a mathematical model that you can run in as a Monte Carlo model, which is essentially a framework for running very very complex systems of how we can predict how light distributes through tissue. When we do that, what we need to do is basically baseline that with real world physiological measurements. And so we do things like measuring, we trigger nitric oxide dumping into the blood, and we know how much we should see to a rough order of magnitude from our mathematical modeling. We then can take an optical sensor and measure serum nitric oxide and say, all right, here's what we're projecting and here's what we're seeing. How do we baseline this? And we go back and continuously baseline this more effectively around actual physiology. So we're not just out in the clouds kind of doing abstract math for the fun of it. We're trying to really deliver, according to our mission, meaningful changes for people. And there's a number of things that you can do in the physiology with photons that actually contributes to that. So that's kind of where we spend our time separating from what's out there. And I think to your point also, including lasers really allows you to trigger internal tissue more effectively. The LEDs emit light in what's known as a Lambertian pattern, which is essentially, they're a chip-based technology. They emit light in about 360 degrees, and then you package them into what's typically a PLCC package that contains that back into 120 degrees, but it's still an extremely broad emission pattern, and it's very, very difficult to deliver the correct dosage to the correct tissue if you're emitting in what's not so lasers are collimated and the LEDs are just kind of ever expanding. And so it means that dosing is really difficult to do with LED systems, and particularly for internal tissue. If you're dosing if you want to reduce wrinkles or have a wound heal faster at the skin level, the LEDs are not bad. The red LEDs actually provide a reasonable dosage at that level. But for internal tissue, for things like your joints, for remodeling cartilage, for treating osteoarthritis, you can't dose effectively with those. So that's in a word how we separate from what's out there from a commodity standpoint.
Now, if I go to the website and take a look at the athletes that endorse this, right? I mean, we recognize all of the faces, right? I mean, we've got like Brooke Wells and Sam Dancer and Sarah Sigma's daughter. And I mean, there's just Ricky Gerard. There's just a flow of CrossFitters. Like, why is this so heavily in the CrossFit space? I mean, I mean, there's obvious reasons we need it the most, which is fair,
Breaking down.
but just falling apart. But Ben Greenfield is in here as well, so he's has a much broader audience. But why partner with CrossFit? In that bend, is that a passion, or is it just start somewhere and allow this to spread? What's kind of the thought behind that?
It was natural for us. A lot of our team, myself included, are CrossFitters, and so it's people that we see and look up to, and we see them with an injury. And again, in line with our mission, we just kind of, as a startup, self-funded, bootstrapped. How we approached that was, in line with our mission. Let's get these guys a device. It's going to help them. We probably can't afford to work with anybody, but if it does something good for them, that still achieves our mission, and we're moving things forward in a positive way relative to our mission. And what it's opened the door for is just a lot of great relationships. These guys are all just amazing, really awesome people, aside from being awesome athletes. Yep. And I think this kind of goes back to kind of the CrossFit community in general. Is just a really awesome, accepting, positive community. And I think that's reflected in these athletes. And it's one of the reasons why we looked up to them in the first place.
Okay, so I have one, and I use it. I use it quite often. Okay, it's really fun for multitasking because I'm sitting at my desk right now in my office, and I spend half my time here and half my life training. So when I'm at my desk, I'm like, okay, what can I do to help myself while I'm here? So I've got this on my knee or on my elbow, on my shoulder, on my hips. If I'm standing, I'll put it on my hips. What is the right way to use this?
I was going to ask protocol.
Dosage.
Yes.
Yeah.
How often? Or
I can't just sit here all day with it on my knee.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So 15 minutes. If you book in the day with 15-minute sessions on whichever part of your body, you can use a little bit less on your hands or your feet because there's just less tissue there for us to interact with. And so kind of once we've triggered those photoacceptors, they're triggered, and we're not able to kind of do anything else with them for another 12 hours or so. That's kind of the refractory rate for it. But two times a day. And personally, I do I'm a tall CrossFitter, 6'3", so my lower back is always something, and with all the rear chain work. And so I'm essentially treating my, and I also had an old injury from grappling. Torn meniscus, torn muscles in the back. And then the one thing that I'd love for people to understand about it as well, though, is that there's a very strong impact for gut health. And so that's something that I found myself doing with a habit stacking kind of protocol every morning. I start in with my meditation and and then it rolls into my emails. But the habit stacking is really useful. If you have something that you do every day, it doesn't have to be something super healthy. It could be Netflix and Cheetos, but if you do it every day, stack something healthy with it so you can take a kind of a positive impact out from the pain. And again, the main thing longer term is remodeling. So there's two big things that it does from a longer term standpoint is remodeling tissue from a soft tissue, cartilage, and ligament standpoint. We promote increased generation of type 2 collagen, chondroblasts, osteoblasts, and stem cells, which kind of the overall impact of is you grow faster new cartilage. And this is on a month scale. So it is one of those things where you need to build the habit and kind of execute it with consistency. This isn't kind of a tomorrow you have new cartilage type thing. And again, we do get a lot of skepticism and hey, is this snake oil? But we spend tens of thousands of hours in the medical research to try to provide the most meaningful and reasonable expectations around this. So again, month scale kind of tissue remodeling. But with the gut, you also have the opportunity to be able to do neurotransmitter signaling triggers in your brain. So increasing brain-derived neurotrophic factor, increasing dopamine, increasing serotonin, just from the gut trigger. And so I find myself, it took me roughly 10 to 12 days to kind of start seeing that impact. But if I miss my training, my meditation, or my gut treatment right now, if I miss any two of those, I really notice it. Like you see that, you feel the difference on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I was going to ask, just kind of backing up, because Jason talked about trying to accomplish a couple things at a time, and you referred to it as habit stacking. But the evolution of the product, because it is, how many trials and errors did you go through with maybe the size of that being so functional, being able to be targeted? Because one thing, I think everybody's living a busy life. If it's something that's onerous, it's hard to incorporate into your daily routine. So, you came down and developed it to be the size that it is, or did it start out as a much larger unit? Just finding that's what you needed to get the targeted therapy, or
No,
was it
we were
even
not.
smaller and you grew it?
No, it's about the same size as we launched. We're on our fourth
Okay.
now, and this will release this summer, our fourth version of the straps. So we keep trying to improve
Okay.
the user experience with the straps. But our assumption with this was that, and we got very lucky with a couple of things, but our assumption was if we can decrease the size, make it travel friendly, make it wearable, and make it battery driven, then it's going to replace these $30,000 desktop units that are used at a clinical level, and we can provide the same or better dosing, so that you would get at a medical clinic. So this was our goal from the beginning, is to reduce the friction points so that people can adopt this.
Bingo.
And really,
that's a good way of saying it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that is exactly how the friction points, because if it's that big or that large, it's a hassle. Yeah.
Yes. Well, we also got super lucky with this. We spent a lot of time in my previous roles in different businesses. I spent almost 20 years in China in the supply chain. And so we've been in and out of a lot of different chip fabs and laser fabs and things like this. And the technology that's come around for this, we're now able to use lasers that weren't available 5 years ago, and would have been 10x the cost and at least 10x the size. Like it's they were just enormous. And so we've been very lucky and fortunate to be able to use what are called vertical cavity surface emission lasers, which is kind of a next generation laser package that's at a very small size, but it came around right at the right time for us to be able to leverage this in a way that people could use in their homes.
Before Jason goes on, I just want to announce that we've set a podcast record for most terms used that I am trying to understand. We've surpassed my. I'm trying to follow.
Listen, I'm all in. I trust my photoreceptive areas of my body will take.
It's making a difference, right?
I made it. I'm already using it. Here we are. We're three men talking about this on a podcast. And I was literally just got a text from my wife, and she said, "Hey, so could this be helpful for women?" And I know specifically she's thinking more about like cramping or with their cycle. Have you done any testing around that? I know for me, like three men, I'm like, I don't know what I'm even talking about there, but I think it's a valid question. If there were females on this, they might ask something like that.
No, 100%. And it's a really, really valid question. And it's not something that we had researched. And our tech team, like much of kind of technology industry and the medical research as well, leans very heavily male. And because of that, we hadn't looked into this until recently, when one of our friends, who's a founder of a kind of supporting company, is just a great guy. His wife had endometriosis, and there's not really any drugs that target endometriosis from a pain and inflammation standpoint. And she was the first of 3 or 4 people, women who contacted us and said, we've gone from like 8 or 9 out of 10, like completely out of it, unable to function. And in 20 minutes using this, gone down to a 1 or 2 and back in the day and feeling myself again from a pain standpoint. And so again, I think we talked a little bit earlier on, for us, the visual assessment score, the pain scale is not very, it's hard. It's not very objective, but it's all we have to be able to measure these things. And when you see that level of swing, we started putting more resources in to go to research what's happening there. And what's really happening is that there's no more, and this is by orders of magnitude, there's no more inflamed from a severity of inflammation or regularity of inflammation tissue in the body than uterine lining. And we also deal, we target and impact a photoreceptor in mitochondria. And it's a very mitochondria dense part of the body as well. So you can see why kind of mechanistically, biochemically, we're able to target this. But with menstrual pain, with polycystic ovarian syndrome, with fertility. There's actually a powerful increase in fertility based on treating that endothelial tissue for the uterine lining. It's really powerful tool. And as we started looking into this, our 808 nanometer lasers actually target this effectively, but there's even better ways. And so we've got a new product that we're going to be launching this summer that specifically targets female pathologies for endometriosis, dysmenorrhea, menstrual pain and cramping, fertility, and just general ovary health. And it's super exciting to be able to get into that space because the outcomes are like nowhere else in the body, just because of this mitochondrial density and inflammation that actually is there.
That's very cool.
I was going to say, what you've just discussed now, is the company on the radar, or how on the radar are you from the healthcare industry? I mean, is this something that, partnering, or, is this, kind of how you're growing or where you're looking to go next based on, the advancements, especially like you're just discussing?
We do have a partnership that we're finalizing with the Martinez Lab at Harvard. Great guys. They do this is essentially around a product that we're going to be launching next year for brain health, which is we feel that, again, we want to hold ourselves to a better standard than necessarily the visual assessment score can provide from a measurement standpoint. We want to see objective measurements. And so one of the technologies that we're developing right now is called functional near-infrared spectroscopy, which is...
we need a word counter. We need a word counter on this podcast right now. I'm serious. Can you repeat that one more time?
Functional near-infrared spectroscopy is like, imagine an MRI that was a little bit less resolution, but that you could wear and track your cardiovascular and oxygen usage in your brain, and the metabolic function in your brain as well, which maps correlates very highly to depression, anxiety, and a number of different types of dementia. We're actually filing a lot of grants right now around Alzheimer's and Lewy body syndrome and Parkinson style treatments, because it's the earlier in the development of those pathologies that we can identify them, the better we can treat them, and we can actually target them with preventative measures with this. And so it's an extremely exciting space to be in, because there's just not great solutions for those right now. And I think that we've kind of, as a scientific and medical community, we've gone down a couple of different blind alleys relative to different fibrins and kind of solutions for reducing those those waste materials and long-term structures in the brain, when those weren't necessarily the problem we need to be treating.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yes, I was going to say,
Rick, I was going to have a question, but I'm just. Oh, this was my question.
Yeah. Because I've got.
What should we not do with this? I mean, I feel like I shouldn't treat my retinas, right, or my corneas. Probably not directly putting them on my eyes. I know that I have glanced at the laser as I'm putting it. I'm like, oh my god, it is so bright.
Looking at the eclipse. Don't do that.
It is legitimately.
Don't do that.
If you were wondering if it's bright and if it could pierce skin, it could. But I'm being silly. But are there any areas where we don't want to use this, right? That could be could not have a beneficial outcome.
Yeah, don't strap it to any sharks, and we're going to be mostly safe. But it's actually class 1 lasers. We redesigned these based on 2 tests that we ran. Class 2 lasers are particularly infrared, are a little bit dangerous for your eyes, and you want to wear kind of eye coverings for those when you're using these. We tested for functionality, and the functionality was higher with the class 1 lasers. And so the class 1 lasers, what we've gone with, that they won't damage the retinas. Again, and we're sub 10 milliwatts per emitter. There's a number of different safety mechanisms we put in place for this.
Okay.
Gotcha. There are areas of your body that are more sensitive to this, and I don't go to a conference without having someone ask me, can I erectile dysfunction being what it is, can I put this on my junk? And you can, but if you do this, one of the things that you're looking to trigger is increase in testosterone, and Leydig cells are more sensitive, and so it would be going from a 15-minute dosage down to a 2 to 3 minute dosage, and we're still dialing that in. We have some external tests with medical groups that we're working on with this, because we get the
That
question so
question
much.
probably comes up a lot. Yeah.
But it's it's one of those things, and again, the number, I think the number one thing that we see from people is incredulity, and we'd really like to just kind of, we've got a 30-day trial. We allow people to take this. Please send us back. If also my partner Tom and myself put our Calendly out there for anyone who's not getting what they expect out of it, call us, because if you're not getting what you want out of it, we don't want you stuck with a device that's not doing. Our job is not building a company from a commercial. We have to have a commercial value to be able to continue the growth, but the mission is to help people move the quality of life needle. And so if you're not getting what you want out of it, we absolutely don't want people stuck with a device. And so we kind of raise our hand and say, hey, if you are not getting what you want, call us and let's talk through how we either fix that for you, or how we understand how we've done this wrong, because that's our responsibility and our accountability at that point.
Excellent.
Well, Forrest, we appreciate your time. This has been fantastic, super educational, and it's just so nice to understand the background behind a device that I'm using and that I've been sharing about my experience with it, but without I won't be able to share with others the depth that you've shared with us, obviously, but we can refer them to this to get a much broader understanding of this. So thank you for taking the time to do this. Forrest Smith is co-founder of Kineon, and Kineon can be found at kineon.io. I'll have a link in the show notes, of course, as always. And Forrest, we appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate the discussion, guys.
Thank you very much.
All right. That was a great interview, Rick.
Yes.
That was so fun. I didn't anticipate it being so informative, but I'm glad we did that.
Right.
That was really cool.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to make light of the words he used, but he knows his stuff. He's very, very informative. And I think there is a lot of good to be had from a product that has I so thoroughly researched and works well. And hey, you're living it right now. I am not yet, but
I agree. I feel naked.
It works.
I feel naked right now by not having one. Like my left elbow is a little tender from just a bunch of pull-ups yesterday, and I want to have the red light laser like on it right now, but I'm going to focus because I think we should get into semifinals last week, and we did it. At this point, we're both sitting in qualifying spots. Video review is not done yet. In fact, we'll take 1 second to talk about that. Have you seen anything? Have you seen things shuffle around on your leaderboard?
I can speak for my leaderboard and some of the others that I talk to. I know you talk to a whole lot of folks. There's shuffling going on, and I think there are some penalties being assessed. But there are also people receiving validated emails, emails that say your event 3 or event 2 have been validated. The submission is accepted kind of language. Very CrossFit legalese. But
yes.
We've gone over the rule book. We talked the rule book way back at the beginning of the season, and it will be, they'll look at one video, and I think the language is, I don't have it word for word, but if they need to look at more, they will. So I don't anticipate like you had last year, I had the year before, where, remember, within a day or two, you had all 4 looked at. It was super fast. And it was done. But again, it was only 10 per age group. Very different. So yes, some things are happening. We're still in this middle part of the week where I don't think anything is finalized until next week.
Next
later
week.
May,
I think the 28th. Is that right?
Yeah. 28th and then 29th invitations would come out. So we still have some time. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I've heard I've heard of a couple athletes that I know 2 athletes specifically that had some significant no reps on workout 3, the ring muscle up and the front squat workout. One individual did not lock out his front squats or was a little muted, but then when he rested, he opened his hips all the way. So it looked very vertical. So he got dinged on a lot of front squats. And I know a female athlete that got dinged for not locking out ring muscle ups, who also was pushed out of the top 40 due to that. So it's always very, it's such a bummer when when penalties are assessed in such a way that, someone loses their spot, it's always a good lesson to learn that you just have to be meticulous in your movement when video review is happening.
Right.
And I think early in this process, I was nervous that videos weren't being watched. I was thinking to myself,
here we go again.
There's
quarterfinals. All over
here we
again.
go again.
Yep.
Are we going to see this? I know, I've got a buddy that's in my age group. He's in 44th place. And, I just want to see him make it into the top 40. And I'm just thinking, is there really 40 men ahead of him that squatted correctly and locked out their muscle ups correctly? And maybe there is. Evidently, at this point, there is. But I'm rooting for him to get in. But at the same time, I don't want someone inadvertently to get bumped out. So. But there are things happening. I've gotten a couple of emails with score validations, which is always a bit relieving. I still have 2 that haven't had that, but I'm assuming that having 2 reviewed, like you said, they were going to review one and they would look at more than one if necessary. And I've had 2 approved so far. Have you had any approvals yet?
I've had 1 approval on event 3.
Okay.
Which is
okay.
Great, because I think that's where some penalties were being assessed, that I can see some score changes occurring on our leaderboard, and that's muscle ups and front squats. I love that. I love that test. So thank goodness that's behind me. But there were also a lot of adjustments on event 2 in our age group, which also other age groups. There were zeros that showed up, and then there were significant amounts of reps taken away. So
interesting,
but I don't have a video on that yet. So I don't
really
have a video. I don't have an acceptance email from that. I certainly have a video submitted.
Yes.
Yeah. So we wait.
How did you experience? Given that since the last time we talked about the workouts specifically, they were released and there was some debrief about them in our initial podcast. Just like, what did you expect from the workouts? What was your experience, or was there any special moments that were different in your experience versus what you thought in a workout? And I know I have some.
Okay. How about you want to do the old back and forth?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then not
might as well go back and forth
in that order. The first thing I saw with the 20-minute AMRAP event 2, that was our 3rd straight 20-minute test. Again, in quarterfinals, if you finished it, again, not many in my age group finished it. A number of yours did. And as we got younger, a lot did. So for all of us, it was really a 20-minute test, but that was the 3rd straight 20-minute test. And I felt absolutely terrible coming off of that one. It just, I don't want to say it exposed, because I do have strict handstand push-ups and my score was very respectable. Well, not certainly top or anything like that, but it was respectable. But physically, I just was beat down by that. And I was like, here is another 20-minute, 25% of our score total depends on how you work for 20 minutes. And so that hit me. I think that was harder than I thought it was going to be.
All of the workouts were so important when there's only 4 workouts and it is 25% of your score.
That bugs me.
Big deal.
And we've heard from some other people that we've talked to, and we all wanted more. Perhaps they wanted more, but that's a question we can ask some others when we have them on. I think in the future, what the reason.
Yeah,
the more scores, the better. Maybe it's a capacity for review. Maybe it's capacity for scoring. I don't know. I'm not sure.
And every year there's differences. We had a couple of extra efforts in semifinals last year that were worth 50 points, right? Part 2
even
workouts.
Right. Correct.
Yeah. Those were great.
So, it's just 4. You're right. Every one is 25%. And that you couldn't, we talked about it when we previewed them. You cannot have one bad one. It really hurts.
And this is very true. And in fact, I'll get to the workout. I did test twice because there was time to do that. I had no intention going into the weekend of repeating. I was planning on being done Sunday night, and I'm going to relax on Monday. And I knew on Friday I was retesting a workout on Monday, and I was actually more mad that I had to extend my competition involuntarily in that sense. But I'll tell you, in the 20-minute workout, I remember thinking that was the type of workout you would pace in such a way that you would finish the workout and just think to yourself, well, I'm done. I just 20 minutes and I would just walk off, kind of like a walk off home run.
Yeah.
Because I thought I would pace it so well. And
Start the way you want to
pace
finish.
it well.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I went for 14 minutes with every 2 minutes on the minute EMOM. And I had 10 or 12 seconds extra time in the first few rounds of it to actually rest with the rope in my hands, take a breath or two, and then start at the 2 minute mark again, and then start at the 4 minute mark, then start at 6. I was rolling. I was like, this workout is just no big deal until it got to the point where it sucked. Right around the 14 minute mark. I don't know what happened. And I realized I reached a certain capacity level. And if I looked at my heart rate, I did track my heart rate in this workout. It was just, zone 2, zone 3, no big deal, but it was creeping up. Yeah. And then it crept up. And once it got high, and it was again around that 14 minute mark, I started falling slightly off my pace. And then I almost completed 10 rounds. I was 7 reps short of 10 rounds. But I'll tell you what, the last 2 rounds were true agony. And I did not walk off. No, I finished. I
saw your video.
I laid on the floor. Just sweat pouring off my head. And I was laying in a spot that we had a couple of Boulder athletes that were doing the workouts there. And so we were all using this same spot. And I knew that my sweat was pouring right onto the spot where they're going to be jumping. So I crawled across the floor so that my sweat puddle would be out of their way. I went first, and it was tough. Yeah. The last couple of rounds really knocked me down. I think the workout was, when you get punched in the face in this workout, there's no coming back. You have to just sit in it until 20 minutes is done.
Because no matter, and again, everybody has a personal story, but it's that, you step your foot into that point of no return, you're not really coming back. And maybe some athletes can. The couple of breaths that count at the top before you pick up your rope, while you're picking up your rope. Maybe all 50 double unders are restorative, which they aren't for me, but maybe they are for certain athletes. But once I stepped in, I could not come back. And I just, my breaks, I took more breaks on the handstand push-ups, and the double unders felt great, and everything else, the box jumps were deliberate. You had to stand all the way up. Yep. They were slow. Yep. 30 inches is not 30 inches under fatigue. Who does those box jumps fast?
That is not fast. Yeah. There is really one pace on that. You're trying to minimize
coming
any
down
extra steps.
Yeah, coming down is awkward. It was everybody's videos that I've seen. Everybody looks really uncomfortable stepping down. But
I was.
The rules.
Yep. So, the rules. So workout 2.
Yep.
What was workout 2? Wait, we just talked about workout 2.
We just talked about workout 2. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk. Workout 1 was a different workout for me than it was for you.
Right.
Although we had the same weights. Okay. So no, you had the same weights as me, right?
No, I was 175 for a top bar. You were 185 for a top bar.
Okay. Actually, never mind. It was, well, we have our opinions on whether it was properly scaled or not. It was properly scaled for me. I think for you as well. I think for the age groups above us, I think 40 to 44. Hey, that's a tough one. 205, and you're gonna.
They were 40 to 44 was, I should know that off the top.
225 at the final bar.
All right. Yeah.
So my thought is this: drop. I power snatched my last reps. Did you power snatch your last reps?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think probably the ages above us power snatch. I think 35-year-olds power snatch 225. I think 40 to 44-year-olds, not a ton of them are power snatching them. There's a lot of squat snatches necessary on the last bar, which makes that a slightly different workout. So it was very much for men, I think, at least my experience. I think for women, it was a big rowing workout. It was so much calories, right? For me, it was pacing on the row so that I could power snatch as fast as I could. And I thought I did decently in the workout. I was really happy that I had no misses. All my snatches were solid. I stood them up, but 16 people beat me. And that was actually my irritation. I was like, I thought this was a top 10, maybe a top 5 score, but 16 people got me on that one. But it wasn't something I was going to retest. Rowing. Yeah. They rowed faster.
Yep.
They're taller. They're fitter. They're better. And I'm salty about it, but I'll fix it during the off season here. It's okay. But I think there wasn't anything shocking about that one. It went and felt the way I thought it would go and feel.
Correct.
Was that
Yeah,
your experience?
absolutely. We thought it would come down to those. You really had to dig deep on those last 50 cals because you knew. I mean, again, fine line. You didn't want to go too hard that you couldn't snatch the heavier bar, but you couldn't waste too much time. And I did it next to another competitor, another boulder athlete, and he rows much better than I do. And he was getting off the rower by incrementally more calories each time. Like he had a 8-calorie lead, and then we sat down and 12-calorie lead, and then a 14. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm falling farther and farther behind. But barbell cycling, you can catch up. So that's that one went about as expected. It was depending on what their intentions were. And again, maybe we can ask that question. You could have put a weight in our age categories and older that just would have stopped us in our tracks. So you get to that final bar and you stare at it for the last 8 minutes or so like that. Or they could have really increased the number of reps, kept the weights the same, and it would have that would have felt different too. So
absolutely. And I think it was because we did the clean and jerk test in quarterfinals that was just a barbell, but it was very much it's very much a battery test with just a barbell there. This, I always like the workouts where you have to earn the heavier weights. So it had to earn your way to the heavy. I don't mind that. And I don't mind pairing monostructural with heavy lifting is always kind of a fun combination. And I tend to find that I lift better. It's also something we've seen so many times historically. Think back to last year's semifinals. We were running double unders, rowing into max amount of snatches at a heavy weight. And so there's some similarities there, and I think it's fine. It's fine as a test.
I'd rather see it like that than just the barbell only, like we had the clean and jerk test.
Agree. I agree. I mean, I liked both, but I prefer this.
Correct.
Okay, workout 3. It was one that did we both retest this, or was I the only one that retested it? Okay,
I did this Wednesday night. First one, and then you and I got on the podcast and talked about it. So without the revealing, at that time, I thought it was going to be a very competitive time. I love the rings. That barbell was heavy to the point where you couldn't go too fast. But the thing that we talked about between everybody in our gym at that time was, look, they hammered the individual athletes a year ago on front squats, depth and standing up. And this is a weight that for me, I had to move deliberately. I wasn't going to speed through it, so you could stand it all the way up. And I liked it. And then as more word got out and you're talking to more people, I was like, I don't need to redo this one. I'm not going to waste my effort and energy on this one.
Yep. And how did you break up your ring muscle ups on that? What was your strategy going in, and did you execute as planned?
A few more breakups than what I planned. I went 3, I went 6, and then I went, oh boy, it's been a while. 3, 2, 2, 2. Is that right? That's not. And then on the 12, 2s up to 10, and then I did 11 and 12 as singles. I was shocked. I was like, this is, and it was still a very competitive time. I was like, at that moment, I was like, oh boy, I think I really screwed this up. But how about it? Well, for you, yes, this is where, this is where our probably your first effort and my top effort were not that far apart. And then you dusted me.
Well,
so.
I did first go around. I came out hot. I felt good. I felt like this was a workout I could just crush. So in theory, on paper, I was thinking I'm going 3s on the muscle ups and I'm going to go unbroken on the front squats. That's my plan. Yep. Because nothing matters until you get to 12 ring muscle ups. Right. The whole workout is 12 ring muscle ups at the end. So let's conserve everything for that. I'm pretty sure that was in the strategy video that I released to the world. Like, you want to save all that you have for those last 12 muscle ups. And on the day, on that morning, I was like, I had second thoughts. I was like, I think I can go big here. So I went, again, I went unbroken on the front squats. Yeah. Oops. I went 3 and then I went 6 on the ring muscle ups. And then I went 5 and 4 on the 9. And I really struggled on the fourth one. I had to double pump to get out of the hole. And I was like, I shouldn't have felt like that yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I get to the 12 front squats. I do them. I take a breather. And my plan on
Did you break the 12 front squats?
I did not.
Okay. So I went 6 and 6 there. Okay.
Yeah. On the first time I did it, I did not break. So I got to the rings to do, I was going to go, I think I was going to go
threes, right?
I was going to go maybe 4-3-3-2. I think that was my plan. On the final set of 12. That was my plan prior to starting the workout. I got there. I was like, okay, let's get 4. And I was dead. So I locked out my third one and I dropped down. I was like, okay, 3s. I'm going 3s. And then I went 2 more and failed the third rep. I straight up failed the rep.
Wow.
And I dropped down just confused. I can't tell you the last time I failed a ring muscle up. So I was like, okay, all right, let's do 2 more. So so now I'm at 5. I'm like, let's get to 7. So I do 1. I fail the next. I failed again. So now I'm at 6. I've got 6 to go and I have failed 2 reps so far. I already know I'm repeating the workout.
Yeah.
So I was almost tempted to not even finish.
Yeah.
I was sort of looking around, and the people that were there, my training partners and my wife, they're all like, he's not going to finish. He's just going to quit. They could see it on my face. I was a little frustrated. At one point, I dropped a piece of chalk on the floor in frustration instead of tossing it into the bucket. Like, it was just, I don't even like that kind of behavior out of myself.
Right.
But I think I may have done another double and then just singles to finish. And I knew it was not what I wanted. It was pretty frustrating. And the frustrating part was I called the audible the morning of instead of sticking to the plan that I knew. And it was I had this little boost of confidence and I was like, hey, let's just go crazy with this one. So I did retest this. I'll just say on the retest, I decided to go 3s the whole time. And I was more fatigued for sure by Monday. I went unbroken on the front squats, except I went 7.5 on the
That's the risk you run when you have to retest something like this later in the week. And you had to get that number in.
Had to get the number in, and I had to have a better score. I didn't need a better score to qualify. Honestly, I would have been fine with my first score, but I needed a better score because I knew that I could do better. That's just all I felt. I was like, I am better than the way I performed in that first effort. And so I went 3s on the ring muscle ups on the second attempt. And I did 3, then I did on the final set 3. I think I went 3 again, then 2, then the singles to finish.
Okay. So even you were reduced to singles too.
See? Oh, I was reduced to singles. I might have done maybe 3, 2, 2. How much is that? That's 7. 4 or 5 singles. I know I finished with 4 or 5 singles. They were very hard. So, got a little work to do there for myself, but it was a better score. And again, we learned from those mistakes all along the way. Workout 4. Right. How about that one, Rick? Yes. It was something. We had our thoughts, but then we have our execution. You tested this one twice.
Yes, and the second time I was off pace and I just stopped. And
you did. I don't think I remember that.
Yeah, that was Monday morning. I had a very compressed schedule. I had to do it first thing in the morning, and I would have preferred not to, but hey, you play the cards that you're dealt. I'm trying to think here. Cleans, I went 10 sets of 3. I know a lot of people went 30 singles. In hindsight, might have been a better idea. I went just 4 sets on the toes to bar. I think I went wanted an original plan of 12, 10, 8, but it was 4 sets for me. And I still got to the bar for the thrusters with, reasonable time. But, those first 10, I did 10 thrusters and thought, oh boy. And then I don't even remember. I managed to get to 20, and then I just started. It was smaller and smaller sets. And I look at what you did. You went unbroken, and a lot of hats off to a lot of the men and women in the 50 to 54 age group that just either 1 or 2 sets. They just had it. We talked about who wants it more to finish it up, and it was very evident. I'm very impressed with a lot of those folks that just, the times got slower as the age groups went along, as they should. Yes. But there were some remarkable times in our age group both men and women. So that was really impressive to see.
It was. I think it was just it was a rather fun workout for a lot of people to finish on. I remember recommending that it be the last workout, and it was the last workout, except that I retested 3. So I did do this one on Sunday, and I went fast singles. I went in that day thinking I was going to be touch and go, and I tested how quickly I could do fast singles, and it turns out that I could do them fast enough that it just made sense. I finished 30 single power cleans in under 90 seconds. I want to say it was somewhere around 78 to 80 seconds. So turns out that cycle time was very fast. I really didn't feel anything until I was halfway through the 25s, or if 25 reps in, I started to feel it.
Right.
And I broke up my toes to bar with the intent of going as big as I could on the thrusters. But, after I finished it, I felt like I could have probably gone unbroken on the toes to bar. I'm good at toes to bar. I think I had the capacity for that.
You're different, and then, different athlete.
Yeah. Then I could have just sent it on the thrusters. I really wanted to retest it Monday afternoon just for fun to see if I could do that. And I talked to a few people about it. They're like, bro, there is no need for you to retest it. When you're going to retest an event like that, that's not necessary at all. You're inviting injury, but
sure.
The 30 thrusters were, they were, if I got to 20, I knew I could get to 30. And that was just kind of the thing I had in my head. Also, I'll tell you what I do.
I thought I could. I said, dude, you have 10 left.
You have 10 left. On that one, there was also this other thing, Rick, that I think that Mitch Paget and I were talking about this. So Mitch he's a Boulder athlete, and he did the workouts with me. He also went unbroken. So did Alvin Luntz. I went unbroken, and then they went all unbroken. I think once you realized there was a 4-minute mile that you could beat, you could do it. It's like so we were talking about this, and again, it was just this idea that once that rhythm got going, you could just move, but you had to move fast enough that the pain hadn't caught up with you yet. Right. So it was sort of like if you imagine doing Grace is hard, or Fran is hard, but the real pain hits you just as you finish.
After.
Right.
Yes.
This workout was like that. My forearms were absolutely dead afterwards, but it was one of those, Mitch ended up retesting it because there was a slight judging error on my part when I was judging his first attempt at it. So he did it a second time, and the fatigue actually caught him to the point where I think he dropped at 27 and then did 3 more to finish. But if you could get through it fast enough, you would miss the fatigue. And my cheat code on this workout is a placebo effect due to music. Okay. There's a song I listen to when I work out. In fact, I had this one song during every single one of the qualifier workouts. I'm sure
my goodness.
Everyone around me just drives them crazy. My kids are actually tired of me turning on it's Invincible by Tool. It's just a beautiful song. And there's this part in the song when it has this real rock and roll feel to it. It's just this pounding bass and guitar line with the drums. It is, if you know the song, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Any listeners, at minute 8 or something is when minute 8. It's that long of a song. It's like 12 minutes.
Oh gosh.
At minute 8, you've got 3 or 4 minutes of this beat that just rocks. And I had timed the song to hit that beat as I was entering the 30 thrusters, and I heard it come on, and I was like, "Oh, I got this. With this, I could do this. I could do this all day." So it's very silly, and you cannot. I can't ask the DJ at the CrossFit Games, like, "Hey, man, at the 8-minute mark of this workout, could you play this part of this one song? Because that would really help out." But
your competitors would kill you.
Could you imagine? Actually, no, the competitors would be fine. They wouldn't even notice. My family would kill me because they're like, dude, we can't listen to this song anymore. We've had it with this song, because I'm going to go out and do a second. Yeah, I'm going to go out in my garage and do a session, and I'm going to turn on the song in my garage because that's what I always do. Go ahead.
You mentioned your boys. I think I can remember for a long time having the opposite of us as, you're in the car as a parent, and the last thing you want to do is hear the same song they want to hear over and over again. This time you're doing it to your poor boys.
That is correct.
They're having to listen to it over and over again. Nice flip. Also, and I must say, for Mike and myself in the gym, anything from the Rocky soundtrack.
I mean,
Okay,
obviously
it's very different, but anything from the Rocky soundtrack. So
Like,
that hits for us.
I'll take it. I mean, I'm from that generation, and I'll hear those
absolutely.
music. I'll hear some of the songs. I'll be like, oh yeah, that's right.
It's corny. I don't care.
It is.
It's what's gotten us through a lot of workouts over the years.
100%.
So that wrapped up semifinals. Again, I wish we were talking about event 5 and 6. That's a question for another day.
I'll tell you what, we'll do an exercise one time. Maybe we'll do it either via text message or we do it on the air, where we think about these 4 workouts and what was missing from the test that we would love to have seen in semifinals to get all the right athletes to the games.
Right.
I think the test is the test. And I think, given the quarterfinals, semifinals, we've been tested thoroughly to get us to the games. But there are, I think, a handful of movements you and I would certainly agree are qualifier-like tests or movements that we've seen in qualifiers before that really actually make a difference. And we train these things intently so that we're ready when they're delivered in a qualifier situation. As we've, for example, I'm talking ambiguously, like rope climbs. Like you and I, we've done a lot of rope climbs because we've seen rope climbs for the past 3 or 4 years. I don't even know how many. So we were rope climbs or handstand walks or lunges. We were ready, but we'll have some fun.
It's interesting if Chase and Bill do a real good job breaking down the programming in their show. If you look at this now, we each at some point along the journey did a retest, and we know some don't like to do that. Just put it out there, and some do. But if you just boil it down to it, for age group athletes, there were only 11 tests, 3 in the open, 4 in quarterfinals, 4 in semifinals. So you're distilling and bringing down a very, very large field, starting in the open over just 11 events, 11 workouts, 11 tests, whatever phrase you want to use. It's a lot to, I guess, and I haven't looked at the programming holistically to say, okay, what did we touch in every single stage together? Sure. That's maybe ideas for another show, but yes, 11 workouts, and but you have a lot larger fields this year for age groups. So the right people are going to Birmingham when this is all said and done and settled. And I'm sure the right teenagers are also going up to the pit as well. Yep. They have larger fields. Their programming, was in sync as we learned from Joe and Bob, but they're going to have the right teenagers there as well.
And it's going to be really fun. And I can't wait for some of the episodes as we approach the games. We'll be able to dig in deeper. I'm sure we'll be able to, get the right people, some guests on the podcast to give us some previews of things to expect at the games in Birmingham, which would be just this brand new thing for us Masters athletes, having our own event. I think it's going to be something that will be interesting. It's the first year of something that will have multiple years.
Yeah. Give it the benefit of the doubt. First year.
We're in. Yep. So at least until we're seemingly in, we'll wait until video review is done. By the time we do our next episode, we will give each other a quick cheers, and we'll move on and have lots of fun things to talk about.
Yep, because there's a lot more to discuss here. So,
well, good to talk to you, Rick. We'll see you next time.
Likewise.
Thanks for tuning in to the Masters in Motion podcast. We'd be so grateful if you could take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast app. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us reach more listeners and grow our Masters community. Until next time, get bolder, not older.